Hello, my name's John Peace with the Rural Route Review, and I'm here with a special guest all
Guest
the way
all the
from
way from
Wisconsin,
Wisconsin.
Ben
Ben
Boardman. Would you
Boardman,
like
would
to
you like to
introduce
introduce
yourself
yourself?
and tell the
Tell the
viewers a little
viewers
bit
a little
about
bit
yourself,
about
Ben?
yourself.
Sure. Okay. Hi. My name is Ben Boardman. I am trained as a family physician, and I'm um, at the moment working mostly in urgent care, enjoying that still. But I've taken on a new role locally that fits me well. I began writing articles, short articles, 400 words, describing different political issues, different cultural issues, different medical issues that are facing us and that rural areas are struggling with. And I right away, and this was in February last year, right after Donald Trump was elected and began ravaging everything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do about it, and I decided I'm out in the countryside. I can't work with a lot of people, but I can certainly tell people what I'm thinking. And I began to purchase ad space in the paper of record in our county, which is also connected to a shopper. And I purchased 6 inches by 2 columns, and I began to fill that in and talk every week about what's going on and what are the cultural problems, the medical problems, the other problems going on. And we can talk a bit more about how that ended up. I'm originally from Madison, Wisconsin. I've spent parts of my life in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, about 8 years in New York City and Brooklyn, and also a little bit up in New England. So I've definitely been around, traveled a lot in South America, tiny amount in Europe, and I am married to my second and most important wife, and of have 2 children, and between us we have 5 children and almost 9 grandchildren now. So we're doing well. I'm living in a small town called Melrose. Melrose has 500 people. It is a farming town. It serves the farmers in the area, and and both beef cattle, hogs, and some dairy.
Okay. I'll give you a little bit about my background. I live in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, which is in Wise County. Now, we're in the Virginia coal fields. We're right on that Kentucky border. Grew up on a dairy farm, though. And I still live on the family farm today. Now, we quit dairy farming in 1998, like a lot of small family dairy farms, economics and consolidation. If you weren't getting bigger, and when I say bigger, I'm talking about much bigger, you're not going to make a profit. And I'm let you talk a little bit about that locally and stuff. So I was kind of, and then of course I had family in the coal industry. My son's in the coal industry currently. What's amazed me, and this is what we're going to talk a little bit about, and the farm community, along with the coal industry, used to be such a Democratic stronghold. Blue. You voted blue. Now, you had areas that didn't. And throughout the coal fields up until about 2005, union, being pro-union, the politics of the area was usually the top versus the bottom. You were either a company family or a worker family, blue collar. And then now here locally, and I'll send you some information, I'll tag some information for the viewers. There's a little thing called Friends of Coal that came out. That was a marketing campaign. And what that did was it changed the politics in our area, in the coal fields, all the way from Pennsylvania down to Alabama, and it made the issue more left versus right. The environmentalists were going to put us out of business. We were losing jobs because of those liberal Democrats from California. And then, of course, my family that was in the ag sector, especially my dad's family was out eastern Virginia, they were in row crops, soybeans and corn and all that big time, thousands of acres they would farm. And you can imagine what they're going through right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so glad to have you on here. Love the name Barn Owl, and I want you to talk a little bit more about some recent articles and stuff, because you're a wonderful writer, and I'm going to put that link in our comment section. Yeah.
Well, the story behind it was really, I come from a very politically active family. I've always operated either involved in politics in urban areas, or even, and for a short while, I was a Democratic Party Oh yeah, Democratic Party. I was the Democratic Party chair for Jackson County, where we are here, and for a period of time. But I've always been involved locally in our party, and so I came with a lot of knowledge about the kind of politics I support and the history of these things. And when I began writing, my inspiration had been a pastor here in Jackson County, actually in Melrose, has written forever a column called And God Says. And it is 6 inches, 2 columns wide, and it appears every week in the county paper and the county shopper. And from the time I moved here 25 years ago, it was there. And I always thought, that really contributes to the perception of the people in this area. He is always there. They may not read him, but they know his brand, his religion, his purpose is right there in front of them all the time. It also means that his supporters are paying for those ads every week. Okay. So he's got some good support for that. He would sometimes go a little political in one direction or other, but mostly he was citing scripture and talking about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, hey, and you didn't even have to agree with them, but you
Mhm.
were reading it or people were talking about it.
Yes. Talking about it or at least seeing it.
Yeah.
Seeing it and recognizing it.
About 3 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I wrote an article talking about the Romeo Club. You ever heard about a Romeo Club? Okay. Your town has one somewhere. It's called Retired Old Men Eating Out.
Yeah, we got
Oh, yeah.
them.
And I know
Yeah.
what restaurant
Well, they might be retired old men drinking out also,
okay.
but it's a bit of that, yeah.
The reason why I brought that up, I wrote about it, was when I grew up, the first 25 years of my life, and our Romeo Club is in Hardee's. It's a restaurant in Big Stone
Right.
Gap. And all the retired men sit around and get the senior citizen coffee and their biscuit and gravy. And the first 25 years of my life, they would talk predominantly about local politics, what was going on with the board of supervisors at their county level stuff, or what was going on with the school board. Was the board of supervisor spending too much money on buying sheriff cruisers? I mean, that was the topics of the day, or the town council, something in town. Okay. Then we started losing our newspapers, our local reporters, our local TV stations. Now we still have local TV stations, but they're not local no more.
No.
Now, if you and I go down there and I introduce you to the Romeo Club down Big Stone Gap, it's going to be what's on Fox News or one of the even more conservative or something on a podcast or a conspiracy theory. And that dominates the whole conversation. So I'll let you, talk a little bit about your area and your what you've experienced same way.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And regardless, when I had watched that for a very long time, I thought, we gotta put something else in there. We could do a little piece about labor history. We could put in pieces about anything we wanted, but we've got to have a presence again. I started this by myself, and after about 3 articles, I started getting calls from the Democrats saying, Ben, what are you doing? What is this? Because everyone assumed it was coming from the Democratic Party, but it wasn't. It was about then I started meeting with people in the party. People began giving me donations. I had one very large donation just to get started, and my intention was to pay for this out of my own pocket. And then all of a sudden, more came in, and it's only been growing. Many thank yous from people all through the Jackson and Clark counties. Then Buffalo County, which is next to ours, their Democratic chair wanted to take those articles and publish them himself. And I said, let's go for it. And so they began paying for ad space in their county. We're hopefully moving into a fourth county shortly. And then I'm still pitching the Dems in other counties about the idea. The money scares them.
Okay.
But honestly, right now, my article gets onto every kitchen table in the county, because it's delivered, the shopper's delivered right to your mailbox. And who else can do that? What else does it? And why are we ignoring this great opportunity not only to support our local papers, but also
amen.
Also to just get an excellent way to get the word out, and make it very much in everyone's mind. Now, people are always saying, well, most people are online now, but anytime you're online, you're controlled by their algorithms, and and you can't get them to continue to put your letters to the editor in forever. And I just figured, well, and the other thing I think people realize is this is serious. This guy's paying for this, you know?
But trust me, your model. I've brought that up with our local Democratic committee. So, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm a little jealous of the name of your article, Barn Out. I've told you about that. It's a wonderful name for the article and stuff. And talk about going back old school. You're exactly right. Social media. One reason we started doing this podcast was to kind of start a YouTube channel to partner or to be a companion to the news articles I write and try to get some multimedia, also to cross promote exactly what we're doing here,
Right.
and also find like-minded Democrats in rural spaces, rural America, so we can start, just having conversations that people can listen to and go, hey, there are Democrats that just sound like me, talk like me. They're not all from California or New England.
That's
Now,
right.
got a question. Has your all-state party shown any interest in maybe looking at your model, helping out?
No, I've reached out to them several times. I imagine I should do it again. I've reached out through my state senators who I know and others, and I think they don't quite get it. And I think they're still in this thing of we just got to pull our people out we got to make sure our people go to the polls. But they're not expanding our people, and they're not getting back our people. There's people, and what I found a lot in the letters I got back was these are people who were voting. They voted for Kamala Harris, but they got no contact with anybody else who votes for them as far as they know. And to suddenly have something in the newspaper offers them some power, offers them a sense of belonging to something, that there is a community of people who listen to this. In our county, about 40% of the people voted for Kamala Harris. And you can't ignore them, they're there.
We're trying to get to 40%. I live in a county that voted 80% for Donald Trump.
Right.
My hometown voted 83% for Donald Trump.
And John, how many people didn't vote?
There was more.
Was that the majority?
Not quite the majority, but here's the problem that we've had here locally. The media, the lack of having newspapers, and we don't have a local owned newspaper no more. The lack of the media just has really, and it's called Clear's law of reoccurrence in sociology and psychology. Now, if you hear the same message over and over, you will believe it over time. Doesn't matter if it's correct or not.
Absolutely.
Same thing with that. I'm going to go back in your career. I grew up in an era where my parents fed me margarine instead of butter. So that shows you how even the smartest people on earth can get the message over and over and it be wrong. That was sacrilege up there, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, we can go on that. So Wise County does not even have a newspaper of record, one where all the legal stuff goes out?
But it's not locally owned anymore. And so it's pretty much the crime report and sport is the only thing that's written local, and then it's just regurgitated articles from other very conservative news sources. And also the TV coverage we have here, and the two larger newspapers that used to kind of cover our area, and they pulled out reporters forever. So even our local board of supervisors meeting and stuff, there's no professional journalism there asking hard questions or asking any question.
Right.
And that
I think we have one staff writer for our paper.
Wow. And part of one of the things we're doing here locally is trying to do a little bit more community journalism, just reporting, even what we're doing right here, just talking about it counts, and we need to get that out there to people.
Very good. Yeah, it's a hard road, but you got to start it. I keep wondering now. I mean, when Fox News came out, and here this was a very simple format, simple words, repeating the same message again and again, offering up doubt and offering up new ways of thinking about things, was never countered. Nobody came in and said, "Okay, we got to get us a newspaper. We got to get ourselves a TV station, and we got to start getting out to people and talking like that."
And since we're going back to the 80s here, he's and 90s, another thing that happened. And I was a national sales rep. I was a sales rep, so I traveled in a Mid Atlantic area. Another thing that was happening was AM radio, talk radio, and that's where talk radio. And now it's podcasting. What we're doing here, but it was talk radio, and it was so. I can remember listening to it myself. And you had the Rush Limbaughs, you had the others, and it was
Oh yeah.
everywhere. And they were bombarding people with that same conservative liberals were evil. The liberals was destroying this country, and things like Medicare was just bad. And one thing we talked a little bit about, and I'm going to switch gears. We're going to back up just a little bit. I talked about before we started recording was I'm a firm believer that the messenger is more important than the message sometimes. And why we got to get the importance of you writing that article, being a career doctor, living in a community for decades, how important it is that article comes from you, this video comes from, you, that they know you. Yeah.
And that may be part of the restriction in spreading just these articles around. We just haven't had a chance to experiment enough with it to know, is somebody else that they know, if their name is on the bottom of it, is that going to be good? We don't know. I don't know.
Don't know.
Mm-mm.
And one thing we did in Virginia this past election, we had Democrats running in every district for House of Delegates. That's our state delegates. And we're in the process of really trying to reintegrate the local committees and running Democrats locally. Because there again, the importance of running local Democrats that people know, they recognize that. And they might not, we understand not going to win elections when you're losing 80-20, but we got to get back to competitive, and we got to start putting people that they know running for office. How's it been locally up in Wisconsin, your area?
Okay, so our area is kind of west central Wisconsin, maybe 20 miles from the Mississippi River. Closest city is La Crosse. And this Jackson County used to be a Democratic, a reliable Democratic county, just like you're talking about. And but even at the time, the Republicans who were involved were moderate Republicans. There are people who did work across the aisle. Now, the last guy we had who worked across the aisle eventually resigned because he said he can't. He gets criticized if he has any friends on the other side. And he just said, this is not what I came in here for. This is all different. At this point, it's a much stronger, Republican presence. And we hope to be able to turn that around to some extent. I'm in probably the more conservative part of the county myself. But
now, when you talk about a turn, was there a particular time that comes to mind? Was there a particular issue that kind of started that way, the other way, making it more Republican? Just curious.
Well, I'd say somewhere in the early, let me think here, say in 2000, right in the early 2000s, started to come by. A big one was abortion. That was pushed very hard. Trying to think of other issues. Really, it was just the attitude. The attitude changed, and people were, and this is that whole piece about if you're in an echo chamber and a bubble, and the people were relying less and less on us and believing us less and less, and that only became really apparent to me during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And that was like an eye opener to realize, wow, there are so many people who just don't believe this. There are nurses who don't believe this. There are doctors who don't believe this. And it just things I'd never talked with anyone about, and suddenly realize, my God, I didn't realize this was happening. I didn't realize thinking was changing so much.
Yeah. This was right after the pandemic, and I think this was in the Wall Street Journal. They did some studies, there's a lot of studies, talk about vaccination rates. Okay. And there was a big correlation, and there was a lot of causation. Because just because something's correlated don't mean it's causation, but there was a lot of causation about vaccination rates and how serious people took it in regions in direct response to how they felt about their local healthcare system. If they really liked them, and it was very popular, those rates were so much higher. And that goes back
If
to
they
that trust
trusted them,
issue.
yeah, I could see that.
Okay. Here in my area, It is extremely low. We have the largest health monopoly in the United States, covering a area about the size of New Jersey. We all know there's
What is
great
that group?
Ballad Healthcare, and
Ballad.
Ballad, yeah, Ballad,
Okay.
and they use a lot of. We all know there's great foreign doctors, but they use a lot of foreign doctors. Use a lot of interns. And our old local homegrown doctors that we knew, a lot of them just retired out and they
Mhm.
did not get replaced with local people. And then, of course, then you throw in the opiate epidemic. And these doctors are not from here.
Overwhelmed you.
Yes,
Oh.
not from here. Those were prescribed when we had such an epidemic. And so people just did not trust that doctor no more. They were like, and we know doctors got lied to. You got lied to
Oh, yeah.
with fake
On
studies.
Oxycontin? Yeah.
Yes. And I'll let you talk a little bit about and see, that trust was broke with that local doctor because of that right there. How bad was the epidemic up in your area?
You mean COVID?
Yeah, COVID and also the opiate back in late '90s, early
Well,
2000s.
boy, those are two good questions. Really, when it came right down to it, I did the numbers. The issue was always, out of all the people who get COVID, 1% of them will die from it. Okay. And even in Jackson County, where I think our population is 12,000 in the county, that followed true. It was very
Okay.
much the same. It held out for a while. Other parts of the state were much worse off before we were. And then when the second wave came, we were inundated. Now, we had a hospital with 21 beds, a critical access hospital, which was used to post-op care and stuff like that. And suddenly, and up until then, when somebody began to get really bad with COVID, where they were suddenly needing more and more oxygen, getting sicker and sicker, we had one of the big hospitals that we could send them to. And then came a day when the people we worked with just said, "We got no beds. We'll get on the phone with you. We'll talk you through it." And we said, "Well, we don't have any ventilators. We don't have respirators." And he says, "Well, you might have to use the one that you have back in surgery, or what are you going to do?" What began to happen is, and this happened everywhere, people were calling around the state and calling in adjoining states trying to find a bed for somebody. So I may finally find a bed in Iowa for you, and then we have to get you there. And it just became a nightmare at that point. And at the same time, we were fighting, one person would die of COVID, and we'd say, okay, and people say, okay, well, we're going to be at the funeral. We say, well, don't have a funeral. Well, we can't not have a funeral. We're going to have everyone there, to hell with you guys, whatever you say. And then we'd have a funeral and another wave of COVID right after that. And we really were not. We were not trusted enough by that time. And that became a very, very bitter time, very, very hard to work. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, hold on.
So in terms of I was working in a tribal clinic with the Ho-Chunk Nation, which is just outside of Black River Falls. I was their first doctor there. And it was later on that I worked at the hospital, but I got to know people all over town. And I was faced with that same problem of, yeah, but I hurt. Yeah, this is the only thing that works for me. This is what the other doctors gave me. And as much as I swore that I wouldn't get into that, you get pulled in slowly, until I began to see more and more of my practice, people looking for drugs, and some of it. And eventually we were able to stop it. And unfortunately, then those folks went to heroin.
Yeah.
There was nothing else for them. Yeah, and nothing else to do. But it was that moment where suddenly this swell of need was coming your way. If the people weren't using it themselves, they were selling it for income from us, and $10 a pill or whatever it was. And then it got very, very hard, particularly within a small community where the community defended their people, their patients, my patients, and they're like, "Why didn't you give her pills?" It would get around the whole community, stuff like that. But you just had to stop at some point. And in fact, quite honestly, the only way I was able to completely end it was to leave the job and take a new job.
Wow.
That's when I moved over to the hospital. Every phone call, all day. We had no time for anything else.
give you a little bit. If you've read the book Dope Sick or watched the miniseries, see,
Mm-mm.
I'm right down here at the epicenter down at St. Charles, Virginia,
Right.
that they wrote about. And the reason why we were targeted, we had a very high 30 to 40% of our population was on Medicaid. And then you still had a lot that had the old miners insurance. And between the miners insurance and Medicaid, it paid 100% of pharmaceutical. So you had the plackers and the pharmaceutical companies that really targeted our area because basically it was like handing out free pills. All you had to do was get a doctor to write a script. And so it was like free drugs. I mean, it just wiped out families, wiped out whole generations down here. And then I hate
Yeah.
to say, the Democratic Party was so tied in politically with the pharmaceutical companies. That was our first black eye as far as the Democratic Party getting in the late 90s, early 2000s. We didn't come to the rescue. In fact, we didn't even want to talk about it.
Right.
That was a real problem. It was a real, issue. And by that time, the Democratic Party kind of pulled out, and we talked about that as far as on the local level and stuff.
So in your area, you saw the Democratic Party shrink. Did it ever just close completely, or were there always a little bit of activity going on?
It's about to close. I mean, we're trying to rebuild our local committees now, and we're still just trying to fight and get the state party. And it's more than just money. It's about support. It's about showing up. It's about the big wigs, the big politicians, FaceTime. And I get back to the messenger. They keep wanting to send a message. Well, we got, they spend millions of dollars on these studies. We got to get the message right. I got news for you. It's about the messenger. And one thing down here, I don't know whether you have followed Kentucky politics any with, they have Governor Andy Beshear.
Right.
Okay, Democrat. Now, there's not a more red state than Kentucky. And he got elected twice.
Right.
And he just across the state line from me. I mean, I could about shoot a gun over to the state line. He'll pull twice as much as Harris did. He'll pull in the 40% instead of 20%.
Yeah.
And, hey, somebody, there was a reporter that asked him, how do you do so well in Eastern Kentucky? It's pretty simple. I show up, I go, and I talk about Eastern Kentucky problems. I don't talk about Democratic issues. I talk about problems in Eastern Kentucky and rural Kentucky. And, we're still kind of, us Democrats, we love our big issues, and they're important. They're important to me. But rural people want to hear about what's affecting them. I'm sure up in Wisconsin the same way.
Absolutely. Same. That is where it hangs. I mean, that all politics are local. They want to know.
One of my favorite quotes. I say it all the time.
And it's sort of like I was on the board of trustees for the village, and if you had you could bring up, you ask people to come in and talk about some important thing, and you'd get one or two. Then you say, okay, we're going to talk about potholes, and place is full.
Yeah.
And that's what people need. That's what they want. And they want to know, we want to put a new snowmobile route through town. Where are you going to put it? And everyone would come to talk about it, which is part of democracy. That's participatory democracy. People coming in and talking about that stuff.
And let me tell you, it's also about Democrats and Democrats listening. Don't come in. My best friend, and he's been elected Democrat as a Democrat 9 times in this county, still elected right now. And he says it all the time. The only issue that matters is the issue that matters to that voter standing right in front of you.
Right.
And he was actually giving a speech to one of the, I think it was Kiwanis Club one time, and somebody asked him about his platform. He said, I don't have a platform. I'm here for you to tell me what my platform is. And when was the last time a Democrat came in and did that?
Yeah, and then I'll make it work. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here to work for you.
Right.
And not for, of course, big money. And then one of our local slogans when we started doing teachers is work, boots, build America, not billionaires, not Wall Street. And that is getting back in rural America. It's about the workers and getting back.
Absolutely.
Well, Ben, I tell you what, I told you I'd just keep you about 20, 30 minutes. I ran over a little bit. I hope you'll come back on. We're going to get Heather on here with you. I'd love to talk about some local politics when you were chair, because she's currently chair and stuff. And I'll put your link to Barn Out. Any other links I need to put there?
It's just is that the Substack link? There you go. You got Barnall right there. But is that the Substack link you got? No,
Yes.
that's pretty much the one. That'll get you every last article I've written, and we're coming up on the first year now. Kind of surprises me to realize I've written 52 of these almost now.
And still got
There's something
52
else.
more to go. That
Oh
wouldn't
yeah, I'm
slow
starting
grass.
next year now. Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
keep up the good work. I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
I'll get you some social media. I'll get you some video links and stuff and send them to you and everything. But you have a blessed day. Appreciate it. Hope you
Thank
come
you
back.
so much. You have a great day.